So Thomas Hobbes, I am having a hard time reading about him because his philosophy is very contrary to how I view the world. To think that we are all complete individuals, that like moral relativism, there are no eternal moral truths, that life is basically a war of everyone against everyone, diminishing the importance of community and sociality. The idea that morality doesn't exist and all that exists would be the social constructs around them. So the consequences, such as murder, is not actually bad. The only thing that makes it bad is that there is a harsh punishment for it, that you would go to hell, or not hell, and not even hell, right? Thomas Hobbes. Ugh, you go to prison. You go to prison, which is like hell, right? I don't know. Anyway, this whole thing though, that there are just like no absolute moral truths, whereas the whole classical worldview has to do with we are in union with each other. Realism, we are all made for an ultimate end, an ultimate purpose. There's an ultimate way that natural law theory would say that we were created and initially intended to be, but because we live in a world where we do have free will, we can choose to act out against our natural telos, our ultimate end, we end up having different things, right? Like if we lived in a perfect world, pollution wouldn't be an issue because we wouldn't need to travel. We would have created things that got us here or there in a way that didn't damage the ecosystem. We wouldn't have non-recyclable items, we wouldn't have like all of this stuff, right? Like, I don't know, I guess I'm going toward climate things, and environmentalism today is on my mind. But yeah, like, so there's no actual ultimate moral truth. We have no obligation to care for the world around us. Because we're all have our individual rights. And so Thomas Hobbes literally said, like, all actions are expressions of self-interested desire. There is nothing that we can do, even altruism or generosity is ultimately self-interest. There's nothing, human behavior is driven by passion and not by reason. He was an extreme voluntarist, which is, believed in like moral voluntarism, which would be, he like acknowledged God, but was also kind of like an atheist. It was very confusing learning what his view was, because it was like he seemed to acknowledge God, but, wasn't really. But anyway, so, but a voluntarist meaning there's no real rhyme or reason to the universe, right? So there are two different beliefs there, where either God created everything out of an order and a reason, and it's logical, or voluntarism, where it's basically just because I said so, it's going to be this way, and he could change his mind at any given moment and say, okay, well, actually, no, now murder is going to be good, and, sexual assault is going to be good. All of these things, like, God could just change his mind at any given moment, just as we can as human beings, because if something feels right for us in the moment, then it is right. And if it feels wrong to us tomorrow, then it can be wrong. There's no absolute way that we should be living. Like, I can feel like rinsing out all of our recyclables today and recycle them all, and that could be what is morally good today. And then tomorrow I could just choose, it's fine, I can just throw them away and whatever. They'll eventually decompose in the landfill or whatever. And that's the ultimate good for tomorrow. And so there's no ultimate good in this mindset, and morality boils down to personal freedom. That is what morality ultimately is in this philosophy, which I strongly disagree with. Like, I do not believe that ultimate morality is that we have that our free will determines morality. I think that, yes, we have free will, but I think that within the choices that we make, there is still an ultimate good, and that ultimate good exists for a reason, which is what the classical worldview would say. Aristotelian philosophy, St. Thomas Aquinas, St. Augustine, Plato, all of these people. And so Thomas Hobbes is basically like Epicurus or Democritus, where, you're getting into these different pieces that we've been talking about these last several days. I can't summarize everything in this video. You'd have to go through and watch all the previous days I've talked about this, because it's day 26? So 26 videos on this so far. This is 26. And so anyway, he basically says that true and false are attributes of speech, not of things. So basically what we say and the way that we say it carries more truthhood or falsehood than the actual substance of what we're saying, which is why, why today, nowadays, like, everything is so politically correct, right? Like, you have to say things in just the right way in order for them to be considered truthful. We've lost this ability to say, I see what you're trying to say. I can take what you're saying. I can like kind of formulate like a thought around it and say like, okay, I kind of disagree with what you're saying, but I see what you're trying to say. Like I disagree with what you're saying, but I can see what you're trying to say and like where you're trying to go with that, even if you've maybe not spoken super eloquently. But this whole political correctness seems to go right in line with everything that he is saying, just with like that morality doesn't exist or just the constructs of it. I mean, gosh, guys, he believes that we are just matter in motion, which completely would support the idea of promoting abortion because a fetus is just a clump of cells. Because in this philosophy, we are literally just clumps of cells. Like if you're willing to say that a fetus is just a clump of cells, then like, and I've made this argument before, you know, it's like, if you're saying the fetus is just a clump of cells, then so are we. You know, like we are just a clump of cells. And that is what this philosophy would legitimately teach. We are just matter in motion. I mean, this is what the early materialists thought, that the soul, that the consciousness of the person is a physical finite substance of atoms. That it's a interesting compilation of atoms. That there's no human consciousness does not come from God. It just comes from a material makeup that exists, and when we die they all disperse and we become nothing. That's what that philosophy would teach. So when we start talking about the existence of God and God's order for this universe, it really does start to make an impact on the true fundamental philosophies that we hold about the world and what our interaction in the world is in regard to that. So this book, though, After the Natural Law, that Professor John Lawrence Hill has written, the whole goal of it is to show how the classical worldview actually upholds these pieces that we want: the freedom, human rights, equality, personal responsibility, and human dignity, these things that we long for in our society, how the classical worldview actually upholds it. And one of the things that I can see clearly here is that in this materialism way, in the liberal mindset, passion over reason, follow what feels right, the relativist mindset, it's actually discouraging true unity and community, because we're not actually all driven toward the same thing. We don't have an ultimate purpose as human beings, right? Whereas the classical worldview provides that foundation. It says this is what is good. This is what the common good is. You know, and all of us want the common good. We all want to be, like, I believe that we all want to be contributing to goodness, and we're acting out of what we believe is the best interest of society as a whole. But what materialism ultimately does here is it's the war of everyone against everyone. We are all fighting to be our own individuals. And there's no common ground that we find. There's no unity, which Catholicism, as a Catholic, you know, Catholic means universal. And so with Thomas Hobbes' summation here, with his materialist presentation, with the second treatise of government, it discourages that true unity because there's not an ultimate purpose that we are all seeking. So at least that's what I take away from it. Maybe you see something completely different, which I would be interested in hearing. I'd be interested in hearing on how you think that this does drive community, when he literally, quote unquote, says that it is about that the rules of conduct ultimately are about the war of everyone against everyone. So God bless. Take care. May St. Thomas Aquinas pray for us, and may you have a great day. We'll talk to you in the comments.